some of the very common locators in Selenium?
Yeah, so the most common locators are by CSS ID or by class name, or by XPath. These are the ones which in practice you will most likely use. There are a number of others, such as by text or by tag name, but those are more situational, and ideally you would want to reference an element by its ID or by its name.
Absolutely, yes. So because if you have the ID and name, you basically use it. And there are theories around that these are fast locators. Usually, by seeing through your naked eyes the code, you won't be able to realize whether you're using XPath or ID or name, how fast they are. If you use the tools, you will, yes, in microseconds, you might find that, yes, ID and name, using ID and name are fast. So there are theories, they might have proved as well, but because I haven't seen them or I haven't noticed that real difference through my naked eye. So yes, I believe whatever people have written, yes, ID and name are fast locators and we should use them whenever they are available. Otherwise, we'll move to CSS selector or XPath accordingly, situational based, as you mentioned. So absolutely correct. So what are relative locators in Selenium 4?
So relative locators allow you to find elements by reference to the position of another element. I have come across them. I've never used them. I see their usefulness, but I haven't had a scenario where needed to do this. So you could, with relative locators, you can find regular locators let you find an element by its ID or whatever locator you're using. Relative locators let you find an element that has this XML tag, which is to the left of this element or below or above or some direction.
Absolutely. And
this could be useful when we don't.
Go ahead.
This could be useful when we don't know the ID of the element that we're looking for, such as, for example, if it's procedurally generated, maybe you click on the icon that should have appeared to its right, actually appeared, and maybe these procedurally generated items, they don't have their own unique IDs. So the safest way to reference them would be by reference to their location.
Yeah, absolutely.
Relative to to another element.
Right. Yes. And this is very good addition, I would say, in Selenium 4. I've created a video on this relative locator as well. So if you get a time, just go through the Selenium tutorial series, you will get a relative locator, how to use them. These are really helpful. The reason being, in Selenium, you would have noticed that many times you do not get the unique ID or your locator that you have written fails many times. So when you add the relative locators to the locators, it will ensure that it doesn't check just the locator of that particular web element. It will also ensure that this particular web element that you're trying to identify is below something or above something or left off, right off. So that's very good addition there. And this has been implemented in a lot of paid tools as well. Tosca is the paid tool of automation. They use similar strategies, not exactly, but they use similar strategy of locating the web elements. Okay, so it's very good addition, I would say, in Selenium 4. So practice that, and your answer is absolutely correct. What are assertions in Selenium?
Assertions are points of validation for the behavior of the system. So when you make the assertion, that's the point where you check the behavior of the system under test against the expected result of the test case. So if you're registering a username and if you successfully register, you need to be redirected to the home page. Once you click the register button, you would make an assertion that maybe the URL has changed for the URL of the homepage, or that some element is visible that is only visible in the homepage and not in the register page, etc.
Right. Yeah. And just to add to that point, your answer is correct. Just to add to that point, you can start with something like correlated with the manual testing. Okay. So when we are doing automation testing, it is basically not just automating the stream flow. Okay. It's also validating and verifying that the expected result is what your script should be testing against, right? So in the manual testing, what, say for example, you are testing the registration functionality, so you launch that application, okay? And once you launch the application in the browser, because you are testing it manually, you can see the application in the browser, it has been launched successfully. But when you are doing the same thing with the automation tool, there is no one seeing that it has been actually launched or not. So you have to completely rely on the tool. So when we talk about assertions are something similar in automation tool. So they will ensure that when we say, yes, register a user, when a user launches the registration link or script launches the registration link actually appears on the page, on the web page. So you assert that. If it appears, then your test is passed. Then you move further, right? So just add a bit of correlation between manual and automation testing because they go hand in hand, right? So everything is related, and automation testing is available there or to help you as a manual tester to expedite the overall testing and ensure more coverage, which will ensure better product quality, right? So yeah, your answer is correct. Just add a couple of more points there. Okay. What is the difference between soft assert and hard assert?
Hard asserts. If a hard assert fails, then that's the end of the test case. Any commands that you told execute on that are not going to be executed if a hard assert fails. So if you wanted to do more than just that single check and gather more information about the behavior of the system under test, even though that particular assert has failed, then you would use soft assert. So soft assert let the script carry on with the commands, even if an intermediate assertion has failed.
Right. Can you give me an example of hard assert and soft assert, and where you will use hard assert and where you will use soft assert?
Well, for example, I would use soft assert if I was validating the behavior of text fields on a web page, for example, and I had a number of fields that take varchar input. Then I would input lowercase letters and do a soft assert that the value that I've inputted is there in the field. Then for uppercase numbers, symbols, and all of these things would be soft assert, and then I would assert all of them at the end. And that way I don't need 4 different test case to test what is essentially a fairly enclosed test case, an isolated test case.
And where do you use hard assert? So
hard assert I would use, for example, if I want to make sure that the registration process happens successfully, then that's really only one thing that I need to assert, such as the presence of a homepage element on the page or the URL. And because it's the only thing that I need to know, then a hard assert will do.
right. Okay. So just I would like to clarify little bit things there. Again, soft assert and hard assert try to correlate with the manual testing. Okay. Now, when you're doing manual testing, usually you launch the application. And if, say, for example, you are trying to test a user management or employee management portal for your organization, employee management portal, you launch in the Chrome browser and then you try to log into the employee management portal. And as soon as you click on login, you put username and password and click on login, it crashes, it doesn't redirect you to the home page. Right. So this is what you will do in the manual testing case. If you are doing it manually, you will straight away go ahead and log a defect for that because you cannot proceed any further tests. So you have to log into the employee management portal. Then you have to say, for example, to send an email to an employee, to update the address of the employee. So all those are small test cases after you log in to the portal. But since you are not able to log into the portal itself, As a manual tester, you will log the defect straight away because the login functionality itself failed and you won't proceed further, right? So this is the instance where you, as a manual tester, fail the test and log a defect. Now correlate this with automation script. So as soon as this login functionality fails, you are, say, for example, you have written a script to test this particular functionality. You want to test a couple of test cases after logging into the portal. And as soon as you log in or your script logs in, the login fails. So you do not want to go ahead and keep performing the test or trying to run the further test scripts as automation, okay, in automation. So what you do there is you put hard assert in these scenarios, same way as you do in manual testing. As soon as there is a critical defect, you do not proceed further because you cannot proceed with other test cases. So these are the candidates where you put hard assert, because if this particular test fails, I do not want to execute 10 different child test cases that are dependent on this particular test case, right? Now, when it comes to soft assert is, say, for example, on a registration page, you registered a user and then you are verifying that the registration values are reflected correctly on the UI. So there are 50 different values, but out of those 50 values, say, for example, 2 are failing or 2 are not displaying correctly. So as part of that test, you want to verify those 50 values, but at the same time, you do not want to fail, or you do not want to fail your test to verifying further values. So for example, the 10th value is failing, and after 10th value, there are 40 more values to be verified. So if 10th value is not as expected, you still want to go ahead, or you want your script to go ahead and verify the rest of the 50 fields. So in that particular case, you use soft assert, right? So similar as you will do in the manual testing, just correlate that. Similar you will do in the soft assert and hard assert. Got it? Is it clear? You agree with the answer?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. What is the difference between the absolute XPath and relative XPath?
The absolute XPath is the complete XML path from the root element to the desired element, whereas the relative XPath starts from the element of your choice. Ideally, you'd avoid absolute XPaths because changes in the page might make the absolute XPath not usable, not valid anymore for the element that you're looking for.
Right. Yeah. So
so if, for example, there is another,
go ahead.
If you add another web element, say you have an array of text fields on a web page form, and you added another input field in between the field that you are testing and the root of the XML path, then the right element anymore.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely correct. And can you give me the sign basically for absolute XPath, how it starts, and relative XPath, how it starts? So there is a sign.
The absolute test path.
XPath. Yeah. Absolute XPath.
I believe the absolute XPath starts with the words HTML in angled brackets.
So no,
I'm not too sure about this.
So absolute XPath, if you use XPath and try to, say, for example, go to Chrome, just right click and inspect the element, any of the element, and right click and copy XPath. Usually it will give you the relative XPath, and relative XPath will be 2 forward slashes, and absolute XPath is single forward slash followed by all the forward slashes, right? So basically what it says is the root element slash HTML and then slash whatever sub element below that, right? When you say double forward slash and then say input, so you are looking for input tag in the HTML structure, or basically wherever the input tags are when you put double forward slash. So that's how relative XPath starts, and absolute XPath starts with just 1 forward slash. So that's the key differentiator between absolute and relative XPath. And as you mentioned that we should not use absolute XPath, they are very, very brittle. Never use them, all right? Unless and example, you cannot find any other
Yeah.
way to identify the element. And I'm pretty sure there are so many different ways to identify web element, good ways. If you learn XPath and CSS selectors, you will be absolutely fine with the locator strategies. Okay. And I do have complete separate series on CSS selectors, JSON path, and XPath. So they have like 10 each tutorials which explain all the advanced strategies how you can identify web elements. So they are must visit, I would say. Just go ahead and see what advanced things you can apply to identify the XPath, because this is the key area where people struggle to identify the web elements, right? So if you identify them properly, your script will be less error prone and will pass properly. Okay, can you explain me different types of weights in Selenium?
Yeah, so there are three different types of weights in Selenium. You've got the implicit weight, explicit weight, and the fluent weight. The reason we need weights is because when we're testing web applications, all the app page are going to load at the same time, which means that you might have the page might have loaded and the script might have started executed, but the elements on the page aren't haven't loaded yet, and so you would get a no such element exception. So what you do is you can either define an implicit wait, which waits a set period of time for each script command. Now you don't really want to wait that set amount of time for each script command, because it's going to take forever to complete all of your scripts, and you don't have to wait that full duration for every command. So you would declare an explicit wait where you need it, which you give it an amount of time and an expected condition, and you get the element. So you tell the script wait 10 seconds for this element to be clickable, or for this element to have this text inside it, or a number of other conditions, and then you get the reference to the element. Or you can have a fluent wait, which like the explicit wait, you can give it a maximum amount of time. You can tell it to ignore certain errors, but you can also tell it how frequently to poll the element in question. So every second, or every 5 seconds, or whatever.
Absolutely spot on. I do not need to add any more points there, Arish. So absolutely clear answer on implicit, explicit, and fluent wait. And with examples you have covered, with the type of exception that they'll throw, the condition. So absolutely fantastic. Just ensure that you answer in the same way, and learn implementing. I'm pretty sure because you're practicing Selenium, you would have already implemented all these, because the understanding, or with your answer, I can see that you have very, very clear understanding of these three weights. So this usually comes when you have actually practiced. So absolutely fantastic. How do you handle drag and drop in Selenium?
You use the built-in actions class. So I believe the exact syntax is action drag and drop, and it takes it takes parameters. Either you can use the locators of the elements, or you can use XY pixel coordinates.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So actions class is the class which has, it's a built-in, is a built-in feature which is provided by Selenium to handle the user actions, mouse actions, keyboard actions, right? So that's the class which has a lot of functionalities that you can use to do the mouse emulations, keyboard emulations, etc. So I'm pretty sure you would have gone through that documentation, actions class documentation. Did you visit the documentation, the official actions class? Yeah, yeah. Because
Yeah.
yeah. Because once you visit the documentation, that's the very good starting point, basically, to learn any of these programming or libraries. So that's the absolute good approach. So, and your answer is absolutely correct. Because we are just covering the basic as such in this particular tutorial, I'm not going too deep into those concepts, but looks like you are well prepared to go ahead with the advanced questions as well. So maybe we can catch up again to have the advanced level interview questions as well. Okay. Any questions,
Yeah,
or we
sure.
move on?
I'm wondering what is the best situation to use fluent weights in?
So fluent weight, say for example, you have a web element, right? Which takes, sometimes it takes 15 seconds to appear. Okay. Sometimes it takes 5 seconds, right? But then if it appears in 5 seconds, you do not want to basically keep polling every now and then. So you want to have a certain weight to be implemented. You do not want to poll again and again. It might appear in 5 seconds and it might appear in 15 seconds or 30 seconds. Okay. In that particular case, if you do not want the polling to happen and again to check the visibility or visibility of the web elements, say for example, then you can put the weight there. So it will wait for 2 seconds or whatever weight you will put, and then it will poll. So it's a choice basically, right? So if you want to use explicit weight, it will poll again and again. If you know that I do not want to poll again and again because I know this element is going to appear either in 5 seconds or 30 seconds. So let me put a polling of 4 seconds. So it poll after every 4 seconds rather than polling again and again, or rather than using explicit weight. So it's a choice, right? And these are the
I see.
small things that you
So
can.
would you maybe use it for
Yeah, go ahead.
this delay is so would you use it, for example, elements that are quite memory heavy, maybe a big picture that tends to take a bit longer to load than say a text field?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you can use explicit weight as well. You can use fluent weight. But if you know that this web element takes a bit of time and it takes, say, considerable amount of time, why should I keep polling again and again when I know that this is going to take time? I'll poll after every 5 seconds, right? So those are the situations where fluent weight is helpful. You need to know certain things for that web element prior to using fluent weight. That's how I usually do. But if you use explicit weight, fluent weight, it's all good. Fluent weight I use in those sort of situations, as I mentioned. All right, cool. Let's